What if what if the industrial factory farm that you pass on the highway isn't just, producing food, but is actually operating as a literal like cosmic debt repayment center for human souls?
I mean, it is a completely wild thought, right?
It really is. And today we are tearing up pretty much everything you thought you knew about karma and reincarnation and, well, just the fundamental laws of the universe.
Yeah, we're going way off the deep end today.
Totally. So if you've ever looked at like a crowded subway car and wondered if there's some sort of hidden architecture to all the chaos, you are definitely in the right place.
We are exploring a framework today that really strips away the mystical fog that usually surrounds spirituality, and it replaces it with cold, hard physics.
Just strict, undeniable physics.
Exactly. It is a system where every single thought, every interaction, and honestly every meal is tracked with the ruthless efficiency of a cosmic ledger.
Right. And we're getting into all of this by diving into a highly specific and super provocative essay written by an author named Shu Fen back in March of 2021.
And it's titled Four Logical Inferences on How Humans Can Reincarnate into Animals.
Yeah, that's the one, and the author's starting premise is that both historical texts and modern Western hypnosis have uncovered numerous cases of people recalling past lives.
But not past lives as like ancient kings or peasants, right?
Right, exactly. But as animals, and I want to be super clear up front, our mission today on this deep dive isn't to debate the scientific validity of hypnosis.
No, definitely not.
And we aren't here to take a stance on whether reincarnation is objectively real either. Instead, as an exercise in exploring radically diverse perspectives, we are going to purely map out the author's intricate logical framework.
And I will be guiding you through the underlying mechanics of this whole system. We're going to synthesize how the author connects the conservation of cosmic energy, the physics of individual consciousness, and macroecology into this one unified, basically inescapable machine.
Okay, let's unpack this because reincarnation is almost always treated as this ethereal kind of poetic journey.
Yeah, like a spiritual classroom or something.
Right, but what makes Su Feng's text stand out is how the author tries to apply these rigid, almost mathematical rules to it. I mean, it reads like an engineering manual for the universe.
It really does. And the foundation of this entire theory rests on a concept that we can call the cosmic ledger.
The cosmic ledger, right?
Yeah, the core idea is that the universe operates on a fundamental law where the sum of positive and negative energy must always ultimately equal zero.
So it's literally just a balance sheet.
Exactly. The author treats this not as some sort of moral guideline like be a good person, but as an unbreakable thermodynamic reality.
Wow. So what you get always mathematically equals what you give.
Right. Getting requires giving, and giving ensures receiving. The author insists that without this mechanism to force a zero-sum balance, the universe would literally just tear itself apart.
So cosmic fairness isn't a judge sitting on a cloud somewhere handing down sentences.
No, it is literally the gravity of this energy law. So therefore, if you take something from someone in this life, whether that's wealth or energy or even emotional labor, you create an energetic deficit.
And you can't just skip out on the bill when you die.
Exactly. You cannot simply die and walk away from a deficit. You absolutely must repay it.
Wait, so if I owe someone a massive debt, say I totally ruined them financially, or I extracted so much from them emotionally that I can never balance the scales before my physical body just gives out, how do I pay that back in the next life?
That is the big question, right?
Right, because it's not like I can just come back as their accountant and offer free tax prep, you know?
No, the universe demands a much higher price. The author argues that the repayment method actually crosses species lines to settle the score.
Wait, it crosses species?
Yeah, if you owe a profound debt, one way the universe forces that equation back to zero is by having you reincarnate into an animal that is owned and utilized by your creditor.
Oh, wow. So I would become their pet or something.
For livestock, you become their pig, their dog, their cow, or their horse. Your physical labor, your companionship, or even your physical body becomes the currency that zeroes out the ledger.
That is terrifying. And the text grounds this in a very specific cultural artifact. Actually, it brings up an old folk saying, to back this up, quoting the phrase, "Your great kindness cannot be repaid in the next life. I am willing to be your cow or horse."
Right, which we usually just think of as a nice poetic way to say thank you.
Exactly. But the author claims this isn't just a colorful metaphor for immense gratitude. It is a literal historical observation of the cosmic accounting ledger at work.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the author applies this ancient agrarian concept to the reality of the 21st century, which is where it gets really dark.
Because of modern cities, right?
Yeah, think about the infrastructure of the modern world.
Yeah.
Millions of people live in these dense urban environments. They consume massive amounts of resources, but they don't have a backyard to keep a cow or a horse.
Right. So if I owe a massive debt to my landlord or some huge corporate entity and they live in a luxury high-rise, I can't exactly reincarnate in their living room to plow their non-existent field.
No, you really can't. So the localized one-on-one debt repayment system breaks down.
So what happens? The debt just vanishes.
Definitely not. The universe simply scales the mechanism to match the infrastructure. Because urban debtors can no longer become backyard animals for their specific individual creditors, they reincarnate into large-scale industrial breeding farms.
Oh my God, so they become livestock on a massive scale.
Yes, on a massive, anonymized scale, living their lives to supply meat for human consumption, their physical bodies are literally harvested to pay off their cosmic debts to humanity at large.
So the factory farm is just the modern industrialized version of the cosmic ledger balancing its books.
That is exactly what the author is arguing.
That is just a staggering way to view the world. I mean, it turns the entire agricultural supply chain into a massive engine for metaphysical debt collection.
It's grim, but it is mathematically consistent within the author's framework.
But looking at this logically, right, if this debt system dictates that I have to come back to repay a balance, there has to be a mechanism dictating how I come back. If there is no cosmic judge handing down specific sentences, something structural or biological has to be sorting these souls.
Right. It can just be random.
Exactly. Like, why do I come back as a pig instead of a chicken or a dog instead of a wolf?
Well, the text provides a deeply technical answer to that exact problem. The author defines life not just as a biological accident, but as an antimatter structure with spirituality.
An antimatter structure.
Yeah, and while a layperson might colloquially just call that a soul, the author is super strict in defining this structure as your actual consciousness.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because normally we think of karma as an external force, acting upon us from the outside.
Like a point system or something.
Right, exactly. But Shuifeng suggests that your inner thoughts are not just these passing electrical signals in your brain. They actually act as a literal 3D blueprint for your next physical avatar.
Yeah, the author refers to this as a heavenly rule, or tiangui, and the mechanism is entirely self-executing. You reincarnate into the exact type of life that structurally matches the frequency of your consciousness.
So it's an internal match.
Completely, the author points out that if you closely observe human behavior, you will find people whose state of consciousness operates on the exact same wavelength as certain animals.
So if you spend your human life acting with the predatory ruthlessness of a wolf, or, I don't know, the blind stubbornness of a mule, you aren't just behaving badly.
No, you're doing something much more permanent.
You are literally mathematically sculpting your antimatter structure into the shape of a wolf or a mule. You are building the mold.
And the terrifying elegance of that sculpting process is that it requires absolutely no oversight. Your consciousness just permanently aligns with that animal's energetic frequency.
So upon physical death, the biological body falls away, but this antimatter structure remains.
Right. And because it is now perfectly tuned to the frequency of, say, a wolf, it acts like a magnet pulling the physical matter of a wolf toward it. In the next gestation cycle, the inner world seamlessly becomes the outer reality.
Okay, I follow the structural logic on an individual micro level. It's a self-sorting mechanism based entirely on your internal geometry.
It is extremely elegant in a way.
It is, but I have to push back on the macro mathematics of this.
Okay, lay it on me.
If society goes through a massive cultural shift, right, say a hyper-aggressive phase, where millions of people are suddenly acting incredibly predatory and all their antimatter structures align with wolves, wouldn't the planet be physically overrun with millions of wolves in the next generation? How does the universe prevent a biological bottleneck or a complete ecological collapse?
See, this raises an important question, and it is the exact logistical hurdle that the author addresses next.
Oh, so there's a failsafe.
Yes. The universe doesn't just manage individual blueprints, it manages the entire macroecology through a concept the text calls the life balance law, or dynamic balance.
Dynamic balance.
Yeah, the system has an invisible hand on the steering wheel, constantly making global adjustments to prevent the exact bottleneck you just described.
Give me an example of how this dynamic balance works in practice. Like, how does the universe actually fix a skewed ratio?
So the text uses the human demographic of the male-to-female ratio to illustrate this mechanism locally, or in a specific era, you might see a wildly skewed ratio.
Like it may be due to a devastating war that depletes the male population in a specific region?
Exactly. But macroscopically, looking at the Earth as a closed system, the universe always eventually corrects the math. It maintains the global ratio right around 51 to 49.
Okay, so it tolerates local fluctuations but strictly enforces global equilibrium.
Right, the system is elastic, but it has hard boundaries. It always snaps back.
Okay, that makes sense for human demographics, but what about the wolves?
What's fascinating here is how the author scales this demographic logic across entirely different species to solve your wolf overpopulation problem.
Okay, how does it do that?
According to the text, every single species on Earth operates under a mathematical upper population limit. It is a hard cosmological cap.
So there can only ever be a certain number of wolves, period.
Yes, when a population exceeds that limit, say too many human souls have sculpted themselves into wolves, a cosmic balancing mechanism automatically kicks in to reduce their numbers, often through natural forces, just to maintain the baseline.
And this leads to a massive revelation in the text. The human-animal conversion is actually a literal mathematical seesaw.
A literal seesaw, yes.
Because the author states that humans and animals are intrinsically linked in this balancing act, since the total sum of slots for consciousness is part of a closed thermodynamic system.
Right. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred.
Exactly. And that mathematical link is what keeps the planet from spiraling into chaos, right?
Yes, if the human population surges, the physical slots available for animal consciousness must shrink to accommodate the energy transfer.
Wow.
And conversely, if the human population drops drastically, the animal population must rise to absorb the excess energy.
Which means that when we observe a massive sudden explosion in a certain animal population, those excess animals aren't just a biological anomaly caused by a good rainy season.
No, they are literally the overflow of the system.
They are reincarnated humans filling the cosmic void left by a shifting population balance. The universe is just shuffling the deck to keep the total energy flat.
It forces you to view global ecology through a completely different lens, doesn't it?
It really does. A declining human birth rate isn't just an economic issue anymore.
No, in this framework, it directly fuels the expansion of the animal kingdom. The souls have to go somewhere.
So we have a cosmic ledger enforcing inescapable debt. We have consciousness acting as a physical antimatter blueprint, and we have a dynamic population seesaw balancing the sheer numbers of species.
It is a lot to take in.
It is, and if all of this shifting, swapping, and rebalancing is constantly happening right under our noses, what exactly is this reality we are walking around in right now?
Well, that realization forms the climax of the author's logic. Based on these mechanisms, the author claims to have observed a specific cosmic reality called the Three Realms Round-Trip Continent.
The Three Realms round-trip continent, that sounds intense.
The conclusion is that the human world is not the pinnacle of existence, nor is it some isolated quarantine zone. It is merely a transit station.
So instead of looking at Earth as a permanent home, it's better understood as an ecological stock exchange.
An ecological stock exchange. I like that.
Yeah, souls are constantly being traded, downgraded, and upgraded to keep the global cosmic market perfectly balanced at zero.
And the taxonomy the author provides for the traders on this floor is incredibly detailed.
Oh yeah, the list is wild. The text says that walking among us right now looking perfectly human are representatives of all levels of life.
All levels.
Yeah, we're talking gods, Buddhas, immortals, demons, monsters, ghosts, lions, tigers, wolves, cows, horses, pigs, sheep, chickens, and dogs.
It fundamentally levels the playing field of humanity. I mean, the person sitting next to you on your commute or the barista handing you your coffee, they might possess the biological hardware of a human, but their antimatter structure could be that of a transitioning god or a transitioning chicken.
A transitioning chicken, that is just a wild concept. They're just wearing the human uniform for this specific life cycle.
It's exactly.
But wait, in reading through that massive list of animals, I noticed the author outlines some very bizarre exceptions. The text explicitly states that insects, microorganisms, small shrimp flowers, grass, and some trees do not participate in this human reincarnation system.
Right. They're completely left out.
They're locked out of the transit station. Why them?
Because the karmic economy requires a specific threshold of self-awareness to generate cosmic debt. A blade of grass or a microorganism simply exists.
It just does its thing.
Right. It doesn't take more resources than it simply needs. It doesn't harbor complex malice, and it doesn't form the intense emotional attachments required to warp its antimatter structure.
So its positive and negative energy is perpetually at zero.
Exactly. It generates no friction in the system, so it never accrues the debt necessary to enter the human-animal cycle.
It's immune to the ledger because it never opens an account.
That is a perfect way to put it.
But for everything else, the dogs, the pigs, the humans, because every participating life form has representatives living as humans, the author uses this to prove a continuous bidirectional flow.
Yes, animals can elevate to become humans, and humans can downgrade to become animals. The gates are open in both directions.
And this is where the philosophy turns into immediate practical instruction, right?
Oh, absolutely. If you accept this intricately balanced four-part logical framework as reality, it demands a radical shift in behavior.
Because the text doesn't just present a theory and walk away, it provides highly pragmatic warnings for navigating the zero-sum
Yes,
universe.
four very specific warnings.
So what does this all mean if you accept this framework? How does it change the way you navigate your commute tomorrow?
Well, warning number one is simple, but brutal: do not owe debts of any kind.
And they mean any kind, right? Financial debt, emotional debt, or even a debt of gratitude to nature, you must zero out every interaction.
And the terrifying implication there is that the text explicitly notes even things received from your own parents or your own children must be repaid.
Wait, really? Your own kids?
Yes. There are no familial loopholes, no biological exemptions in the cosmic ledger. Energy transferred is energy owed regardless of bloodline.
Wow, okay. Warning number 2, you must constantly self-audit your consciousness.
Meaning you can't just monitor your outward actions, you have to look inward.
Right. You must check to see if you are harboring any animalistic traits like greed, blind rage, or predatory instincts. And if you find them, you must eradicate them immediately before they harden into your 3D blueprint.
Because once they harden, you are locked in.
Exactly. Warning number 3 is a direct ecological mandate: never harm domestic or wild animals.
Because doing so doesn't just incur a minor negative mark. It puts you at an extreme, immediate risk of being magnetically dragged into the animal realm in your next life. You are directly indebting yourself to that specific energetic frequency.
And finally, warning number 4, listen to the teachings of sages and stay as far away as possible from demons and spirits.
Keep your antimatter structure clean and untangled from chaotic frequencies.
Right. And to summarize the immense crushing gravity of these rules, the author closes the text with an ominous ancient quote. The net of heaven is vast loose, but misses nothing.
The system may seem invisible to the naked eye, and the ledger may seem slow to balance its books, taking generations to collect.
But the mathematics of the universe spare absolutely no one.
No one escapes the math.
So to recap the massive conceptual journey we've just been on, we have explored a philosophical framework where the universe balances its energy through an inescapable thermodynamic ledger.
A world where your internal mindset literally physically molds the antimatter blueprint of your next body.
Where human and animal populations are locked in a closed-loop mathematical seesaw.
And where the human realm is nothing more than a chaotic, bustling stock exchange for cosmic souls moving up and down the ladder of existence.
It is a perspective that completely strips away the comforting illusion of randomness.
Every single interaction you have, every piece of food you consume, every fleeting thought you entertain is loaded with structural, architectural consequence.
But there is one detail in those final warnings that I just cannot stop thinking about, and I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over tonight.
Okay, what is it?
The author explicitly stated that to satisfy the zero-sum energy law, we must repay debts, even for things we receive from our own parents or our own children. No exceptions.
It's a familial debts.
Exactly. So if every single transaction between a mother and her child or a father and his son is mathematically recorded as a debt that demands strict cosmic repayment, does the concept of unconditional love actually exist in this universe, or is love just another line item, another energetic transaction waiting to be cleared in the cosmic ledger?
Well, is a warmth of a parent's embrace just a debit waiting to be credited?
It completely shatters how you view the purest, most fundamental relationships in our lives.
It really does. It turns love into math.
Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the universe around you. Keep a close eye on your internal blueprint, and whatever you do,
Make sure you balance your cosmic spreadsheet.